Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest question in the minds of many people is how Raila is going to maneuver his political strategies moving forward, because there are two things that are significantly happening in our nation. It is very clear that the Kenya Kwanza government does not want anything to do with the dialogue. In fact, the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, is wasting his time because they have made it very clear. Today, Ndindi Nyoro said it very categorically, advising the president to stop these negotiations and concentrate in building the nation.
Munataka mazungumzo wama hamtaki. Munataka dialogue wama hamtaki. Wenye hatutaki watatuonyesha rais wetu. Na hata hiyo dialogue, mheshimiwa rais, mimi nakuomba kwa sababu mmesikiza hawa watu wadosi wetu, wewe wachana na hiyo dialogue, tufanye kazi, Kenya iende mbele.
When that is happening, Raila Odinga is giving the government 1 month, I think 30 days, and he says that if the Kenya Kwanza team shall have not cooperated, then he will call people to go back to the streets. It is the Raila statement that has really called on people weighing on this debate. People are saying that there are very many ways of killing a rat. You must not use one strategy. You can use a trap, you can use poison, you can hit. I mean, there are very many things you can do to it. But there is a general feeling, especially from the Azimio fraternity, that Raila must not take people to the streets again. I want us to read a certain advice from the Sabotage MP Caleb Hamisi, who has got a different opinion, and he's telling Raila to change his strategy. Caleb Hamisi, in fact, is talking to the Kenyan youths and the Kenyan people at large. And Caleb is saying this: if you think Raila has abandoned the cost of living and only interested in power sharing, just go to the streets yourself and fight for the cost of living. You expect Raila to die for you, get imprisoned for 8 years, fight for the multipartyism and the new constitution, fight for devolution and reforms since you are in diapers, and now you are married with grandchildren, and you still expect him at his age to be chewing tear gas on the streets against policies that you voted for. Baba has created an environment for new leadership with requisite charisma, energy and enthusiasm to take over. Political powers is never inherited in a democracy. You grab it. To the youth of Kenya, every generation has risen up and done what needed to be done. We are now being called upon as a generation to rise up and do what needs to be done. Raila Odinga, if you are offered something for yourself, Bwana tafuta kabisa without mercy. You have done your best to people who are thankless. Allow them to either suffer or learn to elect proper leaders. That was a tweet about some days ago from Caleb Hamisi. In fact, this tweet came as a result of people complaining that Raila had abandoned the cause, that he was only interested in looking for something for himself. And Caleb Hamisi is telling him, Baba, kama umepewa, chukua, kwa sababu Caleb feels that Raila has done so much. Fighting for the multi-party democracy, he was detained, fighting for devolution, fighting retrogressive laws and all that. This is the sentiment of many. Because I remember before Raila went back to the latest demonstrations, people told Raila, it is too soon. The reason why people felt it was too soon, there were voices from central Kenya and Rift Valley who were telling Raila, we are tired, let us go back to the streets. But there's Azimio supporters who were a bit skeptical, and they were saying, these supporters of William Ruto and Rigathi will still be hoodwinked. And yes, it was. And you saw how violence was targeted against one person. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it beholds Raila Odinga to change his strategy. And the biggest strategy that he must do is to ensure that he abandons going to the street. And I will tell you why this strategy will work for Raila Odinga. He must not go to the streets again, because we cannot allow careless butchering and killing of our people on the streets, especially targeting one community. Now, when Raila stops going to the streets, something will happen the way Hamis is putting it. But number one, the first reaction from the Kenya Kwanza careless leaders will be chest thumping, because they are very myopic. They don't see beyond their nose. To them, even when people are suffering, they don't understand. They think that when people go to the streets, it is a battle, a supremacy battle between them and Raila Amolo Odinga. So they will chest thump for a while. That is expected, because even now they are saying that they had dealt with Raila on the streets because they killed many of his supporters. But now, how will this help the Azimio supporters and Raila Odinga? Number one, when Raila retreats and stops going to the street, let me tell you what will happen. With the punitive taxes, the cost of living will skyrocket. And when people have suffered enough, we don't expect the Azimio supporters to lead demonstrations. We expect people, in fact this time around, the epicenter of demonstration should begin from Rift Valley and Central Province. Because when people are suffering, all of us are suffering. I don't think when there is insecurity, it selects you on the basis of your tribe or political affiliation. When there is hunger and drought and unemployment, I can assure you that it cuts across. And so this kind of playing politics, in the sense that when you're supporting William Ruto, then you are happy when people are killed. Raila must stop, so that next time when those people have suffered enough, then they will call him. Raila will, the Azimio supporters will tell them, you lead the demonstrations. We want to see them in front. Number two, which is the biggest to me and the most important, is that when Raila stops going to the street, then they must retreat as Azimio group. Then look at the following, and this is very important. When they must strategize, you know, there are only two questions that people are asking. When we go to the streets, when the Azimio go to the streets, there can only be two things. One, do they want to remove William Ruto from the office? Do they want to kick him out? I don't think that is possible, because they have made it very clear that they don't want to kick Ruto out of office, even though the Azimio supporters feel like they're ready. But this is not the intention. And so that leaves us with only the other intention. The other one is strategizing to checkmate the government. But you cannot just checkmate the government with one strategy when people are being killed. So when Azimio regroup, the following must be looked at. I have told you that before one gets to the presidency, before one wins the seat to the most coveted house, State House, there are three institutions that must be looked at. And this is one thing that Raila, Martha Karua, Eugene Wamalwa, Wajakoya, Jeremiah Kioni, Mwenge Wairia, all those people, Kalonzo Musyoka, must sit down and look at. Number one institution is the Western machination. USA and United Kingdom and all this European Union, they don't trust Raila Amolo Odinga or any other person who is working with him. So even before we start looking at going to the streets and all this, in 2027, I know you may not want me to talk about 2027, because most people are telling me, don't take us to 2027, we want William Ruto to vacate office. Yes, let people try, but I don't think it is the easiest. It is going to be easy. But in the event that they decide to look at 2027, how are they going to deal with the Western machination? Because these are the people who gave Mwai Kibaki power. And when people were fighting on the streets, they forced a handshake and there was a coalition government. These are the people who again forced a handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga when Chris Coons came to the country. How are they going to deal with the West? Because if we don't look at this, then there's nothing we do. We don't even need to go to the election. They must have a clear plan of how to deal with the West. Whether to decide that this time around people are going to demonstrate at the American embassy, I don't know. The United Kingdom High Commission embassy, something must be done about these people. Because White Whitman is still in the country and they love William Ruto. They are strategizing. They are still with him. Number two is the IEBC. The reformation of the IEBC is very paramount. When people go for an election, they have said that one of the things that they are going to talk about is reconstitution of the IEBC Commission. But these people can easily be compromised. You saw what happened when we have 3 against 4. You saw what happened when the former IG, Attorney General Rigathi Mugai, was telling us that the chairman of the IEBC has got more powers than the others and he can do anything, like a paramount chief, something of the sort. These are things that must be looked at, because over the years, the IEBC Commission has always been compromised. Look at what happened in 2017, when we have the man in charge of the ICT, like Musando, who died. Then people still just go for an election, knowing very well that this is the man who held the key to the server. What must be done, for example, when you apprehend people who are suspicious characters at JKIA, like we did with Jose Camargo? Do we still go for an election in such an environment? These are things that people, Raila Odinga and the group, must re-strategize about. Then the Supreme Court, even if we make a lot of noise, even if we reconstitute the IEBC, but we still have the 7 men and women in that Supreme Court. Let me tell you, we are doing nothing. Because once the IEBC, for example, has reinstated their position, they will tell you, go to court. And you see, the nature of our democracy demands that once it has been determined at the Supreme Court level, then you are bound to abide by the rules, knowing very well that maybe the ruling was not done properly with hot air and wild goose chase. But you have to accept to be seen as a statesman. Otherwise, you are told you fought for this constitution, you fought for democracy, yet the Supreme Court has pronounced itself. Things like that. Those are things that they must look at. Do we need to reconstitute? What are we supposed to do in the event that you know very well that the Supreme Court is siding with impunity, like they are going to do now with the courts are going to do with the Finance Bill 2023? They are going to rule in favor of William Ruto. The other thing that Raila Odinga must do when they retreat is to put the house in order. Let me ask you, for the Azimio supporters, who is the presidential candidate for Azimio in 2027? Already when the 5 people were selected to go and represent Azimio in the Obasanjo talks, there were some undertones that Mount Kenya was not satisfied because they wanted one of their own. This tells you that there is a problem in Azimio. If at all they were to take an office, for example, the office of the Prime Minister, or the office of official opposition leader, who becomes the second in command? Is it Martha Karua or William Samoei Ruto? Or Kalonzo Musyoka? Kalonzo Musyoka has got the backing of his people. He's got governors and senators and members of parliaments and about 2.5 million, supporters. Martha Karua, on the other hand, is very strong and unwavering. But looking at the support base in Ichungwa constituency, in Kirinyaga, you can't compare to the support that Kalonzo has. So how do you maneuver such a situation? Because if Azimio waits until 2027, it is going to crack in the middle. And William Ruto will be laughing all the way to the ballot, because his team seems to be to be united around him, and it seems they have decided that William Ruto must do a second term. So with that, they don't have a problem. There will be wrangles after 2027. For Azimio, we still don't know, and I'm telling you, they must sit down and decide and let Kenyans know early enough who is the flag bearer, who will be the deputy, who is their structure, how is their structure like. And if this happens, then I'm telling you, everything will be okay. If they retreat again, KK will be confused. They will have no enemy. And you see, political speaking, anytime there is no visible enemy, then do you know what happens now? KK will start fighting among themselves. Mudavadi versus Kithure Kindiki. Mudavadi versus Kithure Kindiki versus Rigathi Gachagua, Rigathi versus Mudavadi. They will be fighting among themselves. When William Ruto goes to Western, Rigathi will want him to go to Mount Kenya. They will be fighting who will be a running mate. They will start doing that. Right now, they are quiet because they have a common enemy. And this common enemy is Raila Amolo Odinga. When he retreats and is not in the picture, they will look for someone to fight. In the absence of someone to fight, then you will hear the legislators from Rift Valley fighting those from Mount Kenya. And the KK house will be shattered. Right now, it is the presence of Raila that is even giving people like Rigathi Gachagua political mileage. They have something to talk about. They have somebody they can mention and pretend that this is the guy who wants handshake. This is the guy who wants to destroy our businesses. Let me tell you, people who have thrived by calling Raila's name will have nothing to talk about. And then the people of Mount Kenya will start looking at them like, okay, that is the time they will be exposed. Because instead of sitting down to work for the people, it will be known that there is too much politicking. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Raila Amolo Odinga must not take us to the streets again. People should not go back to the street. I don't know what you think, but that is my take.